This is what it feels like to fall for an avoidant. First, there's a strong feeling of connection, like the feeling you knew was possible, and you recognize it like you found home at last. Then you attach quickly while you can, because the signs that they can't love you back begin to appear immediately, but they don't look like red flags to you, because that incredible moment where they're right in front of you, but not quite with you, is like the most romantic feeling you've ever felt. Like it could happen. The potential, it's right there. Except you have felt it before. And if it keeps happening, one relationship after another, it means it's not just bad luck that you're with an avoidant, it's a pattern. Now, does it mean you're doomed to pine away for people who can't love you? My letter today is from a woman I'll call Laya, and she writes, "Hi, Anna. I can't get over this man, and I don't want him. I'm 42 years old now, too old for this behavior." All right, I've got my fairy pencil, and I'm going to go through and circle things I want to come back to on a second reading. But let's see what's going on in Lila's life right now. When I was 5, my older sister came forward to tell teachers that my dad had been abusing her. We were put in foster care, only for a few months, but it changed me profoundly. The other kids had a lot of problems and bullied me every day. Every morning when my sister left for school, I'd cry from separation anxiety, and they would make fun of me. And one morning I wouldn't eat my grits, and the foster mom locked me in a hot room with no food or water all day. I felt scared, alone, and really thirsty. I never really trusted adults after I came home, including my parents. My mom stayed with my dad for whatever trauma reason she had, and they argued all the time, mostly about money. He'd punch holes in the walls, and it scared everyone. Terrible anxiety weighed on my chest every day. I was afraid of my male teachers. I began drinking in 8th grade, and I did drugs in 10th grade and then on. I went to band competitions drunk. I still got great grades somehow. I wanted to be an adult so badly. I wanted to know everything so I could be free faster. I graduated in 3 years. My sister moved out on her 18th birthday. I moved out on my 19th. We fled. I ended up being hyper independent. I didn't ask for advice or help. I just watched the mistakes my sister and others made and decided not to make those mistakes too. I never cried in front of people. Criticism hurt. I aimed for perfection. Still, I developed a sense of humor over dark things. Sound a little like me. Okay. I've had a handful of serious relationships. In high school, a limerence, she says, oh, hell, an obsession lasted years, long after we broke up. He treated me like I didn't matter, and all I could think was how in love I was with him. Let me love you, I thought. And as an adult, I thought it was just young hormonal feelings. Then I was with an alcoholic for 9 awful years. Then 3 years with a clinically diagnosed narcissist before it became a trend word. Yeah, I was into narcissists before it was cool. The damage he did was the worst of all my traumas. He was overly critical, possessive, controlling. He alienated my friends until it was just us. I left him. I was so incredibly depressed and ill. Turns out I had undiagnosed a serious autoimmune disease. I worked harder than anyone else at work. I got promotions almost annually, and I stayed single for 3 years, just dating. Then I found safety in an avoidant. No fighting, no yelling, no expectations. I see the elegance here. No drinking or drug abuse. He was committed to being a boyfriend after 3 months of dating. What I didn't understand was that was all it was ever going to be. For 6 years, I've had space to heal and grow, and I've come a long way with abandonment issues. I'm not very angry about my childhood anymore. He had my trust, and I thought he was the one. When I got diagnosed and lost my job because I was so sick, oh gosh, I asked my avoidant to move into my condo. He refused several times. I never asked for anything from anyone for exactly this fear. I couldn't believe he could turn me down when I actually needed to have help, physically and financially. If he loved me, how could he say no? I would have for him without giving it a thought. It felt like a stab to the chest. All those feelings from when I was a kid came back, that male partners can't be trusted for anything. So I told him I was moving away to somewhere less expensive. He then said he wanted to live with me and insisted on moving in. He resented me for the next year. We'll come back to that. I gave him the office as his man cave. He spent every waking moment in there, emerging only for food and sex. I tried to talk to him about spending time together, reconnecting, but he was too avoidant to participate in the conversation. I felt like a houseplant, unnoticed and wanting water, the bare minimum. We broke up eventually. I ended up reconnecting with an old friend I always had a crush on. He's successful, intelligent, and kind. He told me I was the one that got away. Well, the plot's thickening here. He told me I was so special, smart, and hot, and how the others aren't like me. Does anyone feel like something bad is about to happen? How amazing we would be together. We could run a business together. He was newly single like me. I was head over heels. We were both walking red flags, honestly. We spent hours talking. I felt seen. But if something intimate happened in conversation or in an email or spending time together, he would pull away the next day. Hot, then cold, over and over. And it made me behave poorly. I was a little pick-me girl saying that phrase to him. I'm so embarrassed. I kept texting with him, but his responses became less engaged. I'm sure he got an ego boost from me pining for him, so he would check in on me and we would start talking again. It was beginning to make me feel awful about myself. I can see so many reasons why we won't work. I could see, I think. I stopped texting him and blocked him on social media. He hasn't texted me either. I can't bring myself to block his number because maybe, just maybe, he will get it together and be what fake version of himself I think he could be. You said it, yep. I've tried to reroute my thinking when he pops in, focus on me and my plans. I wrote a whole list of cons, so when I doubt my decision of cutting him off, I can read and remind myself. The cons are deal breakers. I want a partner who wants to be my partner. Rule number 1. But this guy obviously doesn't. It's been over 3 months of no contact. I haven't felt this strongly for someone since high school. Just let me love you. I want to kick him off this pedestal I built, but it just doesn't happen. Logic doesn't seem to be working on me. I still want this cowardly man who doesn't even like cats. Ridiculous. Help. What am I missing? I don't want him anymore. And that's from Lila. All right, Lila, thank you for this letter. Boy, I relate a lot to what you're going through here, and I know a lot of people do too. So let's go through, and we'll go through what you told me and what I circled here. So yeah, there's a history of the worst kind of abuse in your family, and that right there just sends kids into a detachment or dissociation. You know, I'm not a therapist, but I know from experience, and I know from all my sisters and brothers of all my life, you know, of my friends and people here at Crappy Childhood Fairy, I know how this plays out. I see the patterns. And it really does a number on the ability to have relationships until we can really, you know, face it and find a different way forward. I'm going to say right now that one of the phrases that I always find alienating in trauma videos and literature is that you just need to heal that trauma, or when you have unprocessed trauma, or they talk about it like it's this automatic thing that you can do and then it'll be gone. And, you know, the people who are still struggling with trauma, they just haven't done the thing yet. But it's not one thing. It's not just like one thing that fixes everything. There's a way of life that we go forward. There's a way that we start to become more real and more honest with ourselves and more supported by people who are safe for us, which is usually not the dating people we would date, you know, but to have a little bit of community with people who can love and support us and hang out with us so that we're not haunted and chased by the pack of wolves called loneliness, where you'll just put up with anything from somebody who treats you like this. Like, you know, that's the number it does on your mind, isn't it? So this thing with your sister and going into foster care, I'm so sorry. That's such a major trauma. And yeah, you felt scared and alone, and that thing where you're that foster mom, not a mom, you know, some sort of foster person, locked you in a hot room with no food and water all day. I'm so sorry that happened to you. How terrifying, you know, what a wedge that put between you and your trust for the world. So you never really trusted adults or parents. No, of course not. And mom stayed with dad. They argued. he punched holes in the walls, and, you know, it was scary. I know, I grew up in a house where there was punching and violence, and you never knew what was going to set people off. There was alcohol. You're afraid of male teachers. And then you started drinking, you started doing drugs, and you moved out. And, you know, one thing I think you didn't mention, am I missing it? Are you sober? Did you find that necessary to get sober? I just usually, I don't know, when people have attachment wounds, even if they don't have a tendency to drink too much or use drugs too much or have flat out addiction and alcoholism, even then, sometimes, you know, what a friend said to me is, you have no business drinking alcohol. And I'm not an alcoholic, like not even close. I just don't have that thing. But when I drink, my judgment is not as good and my defenses are down and I'm more likely to lose my emotional composure, either, you know, jumping into a relationship or lashing out at somebody I care about. So when this friend told me, you have no business drinking alcohol, this was a supportive friend, a mentor, in fact, you know, when I said, do you think I should like stop drinking? So I didn't drink for 8 years, and very carefully did I decide to try it again. And I found out that if everything is a totally safe situation, it might be okay for me to have alcohol. If anything is weird or I'm scared or anxious or I don't trust people, is not a good idea. I've never liked feeling like, you know, like I'm losing sovereignty over my emotions and my boundaries. So that's just something for you to think about. If I missed that, I'm sorry. Maybe it'll come up again as we go. But you were doing a lot of drugs and drinking, and you moved out and you ended up being hyper independent. And that's like, yeah, when you're young, that's like so good. Good for you. And then it's just kind of hard to really bond with anybody who's emotionally available. When you have that going on, it's like a steel wall that repels people. You couldn't cry in front of people. Criticism was very harmful, and you were trying to be perfect. You had perfectionism, and you would laugh at dark things, which I also think it's a great coping mechanism. But yeah, it can be a way of deflecting really deep consideration of problems and what to do. So you had a handful of serious relationships. One was limerence, lasted for years. He treated you like you didn't matter, and all you could do was just be madly in love with him. And so that's the thing, that's limerence in action. And I think maybe, just maybe, when you hear me say it, it's like you can always recognize it in other people. It's harder in yourself. But when you have that impulse to be like, you know, just love me, just let me love you, like you describe it here. When you have that for somebody who's treating you badly, it's the trauma talking. And the sooner you can just remind yourself that and say, I'm having that thought that I have because I had trauma. This is not the same as love. I have experienced love. I have loved people. I've been loved. This is not that. When somebody is treating me badly, it's not love. And only my trauma thinks this is something I should try to get more of. Only my trauma thinks that. And who even knows why? Some people try to explain it away. It's a mystery to me. Like the way that we behave around love is complicated. It comes from somewhere very deep and primal, and so it doesn't always make sense, and it can't always be linked exactly to what happened to you. It's just, you can treat it as a symptom. You can treat it as a symptom that's creating problems in your life, and you need a way to work around it. Just be like, that's the trauma symptom where I try to win the love of somebody who's not into me. And then you consciously, it's not popular, is it? But you can deflect those thoughts. It's not easy to control your thoughts, but it's worth a try. It's always worth a try. And sometimes I think like the helping professions, they're too soft on us with that one. They're, you know, it's just like, well, you know, how can you help it with your trauma? It's like, but you must help it. You must, you know, and the way that you were hyper independent and strong and got out of your house after 3 years in high school, I did too, 3 years, you know, it's not easy. Well, that's the strength we need to get over those irrational thoughts that draw us to sick situations that are only going to drain our life force out. Somebody has to do it. And so sometimes it has to be this like part of ourselves that stands outside the horrible longing. It goes, my girl, you cannot do this. We're going to shut it down. We're going to not think about it, not talk about it, and not keep going. So this is an old relationship you were talking about. So I digressed, but it's worth mentioning. Okay, so then you were with a clinically diagnosed narcissist. You know, it's like you kind of went through all the ways that people can be really difficult and unavailable. And it's kind of interesting because your experience actually is rich with information about like, how does a really neglected and abandoned kid grow up and respond to lack of availability? In a weird way, somebody who's not available, it's a weird kind of safety. And, if you have this, I think you'll know what I mean. You're not safe. Everything ends up falling apart. You lose all your money. You become miserable. You get stigmatized for all the, problems in your life. There's many downsides, but in a weird way, it doesn't require that you show up at a level you've never had before. And it feels terrifying to do that sometimes. And when people used to say, I just, I would love you, but I can't because I'm scared. I used to think, well, I think that that's like a way that people sugarcoat that they're not into you. And I think that's actually true. But there is this fear that if we were with somebody who had it basically together, our faults and the things that we're ashamed of in ourselves would become very obvious. And sooner or later, we would get rejected for them. And it would be so awful that we couldn't survive it. Like, that's the thought, right? So, you go with these people who are kind of messed up. And then if it all breaks down, you think, well, good riddance. It's not like, it doesn't have that existential threat feeling to it, even though anybody with an abandonment wound, it all feels like an existential threat. Even thinking, I don't like this person, I'm going to leave, feels like an existential threat. It can trigger that whole terrible, deep, dark abandonment melange depression that comes up. When you have been abandoned, getting put in foster care, there's your, there it is. Okay. Then you found safety in an avoidant. And I joked, I said, I like the elegance of that. No fighting, no yelling, no expectations. It's like respite. It's like a little place to rest, a bench that you can sit on during a long hike and have a cup of tea. But then after 3 years, he didn't want to be anything more. It was never going to change. He was committed to being a boyfriend after 3 months of dating. So he was just ready to be in a sort of autopilot mode there with you. And you didn't know that was all it was ever going to be. So for 6 years, you had space to heal and grow. I know what you mean. I know how a boring relationship can be a space to heal and grow. Like a certain part of our anxiousness is resolved. Somebody's there. Somebody's in the seat next to us. So you've come a long way, and you're not so angry about that, about your childhood anymore. And you trusted him, and you thought he was the one. But then when you got diagnosed and lost your job because of your autoimmune disease, which of course autoimmune diseases are quite common for traumatized people. We're way more prone to them than non-traumatized people. You asked him to move in and help you, and he just wouldn't do it. He just wouldn't do it. And you had never asked for anyone because exactly this fear. Yeah, well, we're not crazy when we fear asking for help because some part of us knows that we're with people who are just not going to do it, even though other people out there are the type. We haven't managed to bond with them, so we don't have it. So I couldn't believe he would turn me down when I actually needed to have help. There's the cognitive dissonance. He's an avoidant, but I can't believe he avoids me when I need help. But there it is. And you needed the help physically and financially. And if he loved me, how could he say no? Exactly. You would have done it for him without a thought, of course. And it felt like a stab to the chest. And all those feelings from when you were a kid came back. And the male partners can't be trusted for anything. Yeah, I understand. So I told him I was moving away to somewhere less expensive. And then he said he wanted to live with me and insisted on moving in. And then he did it resentfully. And so there it is. You can kind of trick an avoidant. There was that thing. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. You can manipulate an avoidant to move in with you, but you can't make them feel happy about it. And there it is. You even gave him the office as a man cave. That thing where you said he only came out for food and sex. I couldn't help laughing, even though I know this is not funny, but it's just kind of like, oh my gosh, even a squirrel comes out for more than that, sometimes. So it's very sad. And you tried talking to him about spending time together, reconnecting, but he couldn't even have the conversation. So you got your experience, feeling like a houseplant. And I'm proud of you for getting your experience. And eventually you broke up. But sometimes part of our healing is we have to get our answers. Yes, there's a certain kind of low friction with somebody who's avoidant or drama, right? Inner drama, but low friction around the house. And we get our experience, and that's how we grow. The trouble with trauma when we're kids is our development just gets so thwarted. We don't get to fully develop and mature. And so we have these like blind spots that are pretty hard to deal with. And your experience is how you move through that. And you did. So then you say, I ended up reconnecting with an old friend. Okay, here, enter this guy, the love bomber. And he was great and everything. He was so hot and smart. And, he kept saying how amazing everything would be and you could run a business, and he was newly single, and you went head over heels. And so you tell me here, we were both walking red flags, honestly. So that's kind of how we roll, right? I think when we're further along the healing journey, when somebody like thinks all that stuff like right out of the gate, we know something's not right. You have to get to know people to know if they're great. So you spent hours talking, you felt seen, but anytime things got closer, he'd pull away the next day. He was hot and then cold. And it kept happening and happening and happening. And I'm sure that was just devastating and exhausting. And it made you behave poorly. Yes. And you said, I'm the literal pick me girl, saying that phrase to him. And I'm so embarrassed. Well, you're among friends now. There's no shame in having a very normal reaction to trauma, in being kind of like blindsided by people who can be manipulative like that. It's normal to have that blind spot after the way that you grew up. That's normal. There's nothing wrong with you. I know it feels shameful. And there's that idea like you're playing a fool by loving somebody who can't love you back. We're not foolish. We're struggling with wounds of trauma. And because you're here, you're writing to me, you're working on it in all these positive ways. There's nothing foolish at all about this. This is you getting your experience with the edges of the wounds of your trauma dictating the limits of the relationships that you could have. But trust me, everything's changing. Everything's evolving now. I mean, the fact that you're writing to me and allowing me to read this on the channel is a lot of courage and a lot of willingness to hear new information. So I hope I can give you useful things here. I will try. So of course you were feeling awful about yourself. So you kept texting him, but his responses were less and less engaged. You said, I'm sure he got an ego boost from me pining for him. And that's possible. I know that. I've thought that before about people in my life as well. But sometimes the more I learn about avoidance, the more I just think, I don't know. I don't know what they're feeling. They're like, I don't know if it's a payoff or an ego thing. I don't know. They're a mystery. But, well, I guess the thing where he was love bombing you it's not like automatically attached to avoidance. It sounds like anxious avoidant, where somebody like really wants the relationship and then can't deal with it. And that's really hard. And so you said, I can see so many reasons why it can't work. And you stopped texting him and you blocked him. Good. And he hasn't texted you. Good. And I love what you said. I can't bring myself to block his number because maybe, just maybe, he will get it together and be what fake version of himself I think he could be. And that's, I know you're just like, you're smiling with me about that. It's like, I know, girl. Yes, we do that. The fake version of themselves that we know they could be if they only loved us, right? And maybe if they would let us love them, they would be that. I know. But when we say it out loud to each other, we can just kind of hear, oh yeah, that can't be right. Yeah. I've tried to reroute my thinking when he pops in, to focus on me and my plans. Good, all good. I write a whole list of cons, so when I doubt my decision of cutting it off, I can read and remind myself. The cons are deal breakers. I want a partner who wants to be my partner is the rule one, and he clearly doesn't. So he can't be the one. In the utmost spiritual sense, a person who is called to be with you can be with you and will be with you. So this always, if them not being around always is the sign. Sometimes, and I'll just say for the benefit of other people, sometimes true love is a winding path. But I think this terrible cold treatment of you is not that kind of thing. You haven't felt so strongly since high school when you were limerent before. And, you don't want, you know logically that this isn't right. So yes, it is the trauma talking. So here's what I'm going to say to you. Three things that you can do that are very strong to do about this. And if you listen to letters on my channel, what you are describing is so normal for kids who were abused when they were kids and emotionally neglected. Is this weird way the attachment gets stronger when somebody treats us badly. It's a maladaptation. We're not doing it on purpose. We're not crazy. It's just something going on with our emotions and our dopamine, and it's not right. And we need all hands on deck to sort of deal with it for what it is. When the cognitive information is there, this guy's not into you, he's not being good to you, he's not available. You pull out all the stops and you do everything. No talking about them, no thinking about them, no looking at social media to see if you can figure out what's going on with them. And then I use, and I encourage you to use, my daily practice techniques. And those are, it's a specific writing technique to get all the feelings out of your head and heart twice a day and ask for them to be removed, and then rest your mind. You just do some rest to let your mind put itself back together. A lot of the way that trauma affects us is actually physiological. It's neurological. It's in our nervous system, and we need a way to process our thoughts and feelings so that they don't just sit there forever like, why can't I stop loving this guy? Why can't I stop? Why can't I stop? It's like, because you haven't processed. And what does that mean? You know, people just throw that around. I think we need to process our feelings. What is it? But I'll tell you what it means here in Crappy Childhood Fairy. It means converting something that's a charged memory or experience or feeling, no matter how long ago it was, into a memory. It becomes a memory that's more neutral. So if somebody said, what happened with that guy? You can go, oh, well, I got really obsessed and then I made some changes and I don't know what ended up happening with him. Versus, what happened with that guy? Oh gosh, here comes all the feelings again. You know, that's a charged feeling. So it's unprocessed. That's a good enough definition, right? I'm sure the therapists and psychologists could give you something deeper than that. And I could too if I read out of things. But just my experience of it is the emotion just hijacks your physiology and your endocrine system. You've got adrenaline over it. You've got cortisol, or you've got oxytocin and dopamine going, you know. You're just having this whole reaction as if it's happening right now, and you can't stop it. It loops and loops and loops. That is the nature of PTSD. So we interrupt it. We do whatever we have to do. We can use emergency measures to step out of it, like cold exposure, hot exposure, eye movement desensitization, little exercises where you move your eyes in a figure, in an infinity symbol with your eyes closed while you slowly think about something that's troubling you. You can do these things to help your brain and nervous system just come back and sort of latch on to the transmission again so you can go again. Because it just, you know, I'm thinking of these transmission or the chain on the bicycle, you know, it just comes off because of these wounds. I like metaphors, if you haven't noticed. So we need to like re-engage and stop having this looping thought and think of it as a mechanical problem. All right. There are many things that you can do about it. Why do I still want this cowardly man who doesn't even like cats? I love your sense of humor. I love your darkness and your lightness. It's very nice, Lila. And I think you're like this close to getting totally free of this pattern. So I was telling you, you need a writing technique. That was the one thing. The other two things that are going to help you kind of get over that hill and start to get into a new habit is you need to have fun. It's really easy to obsess on somebody when you've sort of withdrawn from the world and it seems like it was the only fun thing. It was the only time I felt connected to people. It was the only time that I could really feel the breeze on my face and the wind in my hair, you know? And so you need to be having those experiences as a single person with friends often and by yourself. But you need to start having the joyful experiences of life. And that way it starts to gradually, you know, disinvest all hopes in this one person to bring you the good things in life. Many good experiences are possible. So have fun. That's part of my, you know, prescription pad for you. Obviously, I don't prescribe, I don't treat anything, but I'm just telling you, you know, is withdraw from obsessive thoughts and stuff. Discipline yourself. Have fun. And the third thing is, okay, there's a fourth thing really. You need tools to process your thoughts. So that's the third thing. I really recommend the daily practice to you. The link to it is down in the description section, along with all my courses. That's also on my website. The final thing is to have people who you can hang out with, who get it, people who support you. If you watch my videos, I talk about this all the time. I can't say enough about it. I know that so many of us are isolated right now. And if you have some relationships, I know a lot of them are only this deep. You can't talk to them about what's really going on. But you know who you can talk about? A therapist, of course. But you can talk to people who have walked this road too, or are in the middle of it right now. You'll find them in 12-step programs. You'll find them in study groups. You'll find them in my membership program. That's like, we've just spent years crafting this place where people can do the daily practice and work on tools together. And then we moderate that group so that it's like people are all on the same page about like what we do share, what we don't do to each other. Like we don't criticize. We don't share explicitly about bad things that happen. We can mention it. We don't give unsolicited advice. We don't even talk about world affairs and politics in our membership program. And it's dynamite. There's so much life there. There's so much love and friendship there. You'd be most welcome to join us. And so the link to how to become a member is down below too. What I want to leave you with is a list of red flags that I've stuck on a simple document, just so that you can have it with you. When you meet somebody and you go, I'm feeling the feeling about this person. I'm catching feelings. You can just like check yourself, go to the ladies' room or the gents' room, whoever the case may be, and read your list of red flags. These are the red flags that mean it's not what you think it is. It's not what you think it is. And it's just a free list. I give it away to anybody who, give me your email in this form over here and I'll send it to your inbox. You can click right there and it's yours. I'll see you very soon.